Welcome to Inside the Lines, presented by BetMGM. Joined by Schatz and Nik Bonaddio, I'm Olivia Harlan Dekker. So Super Bowl 58, it's quickly approaching, and we're here to break it down, so let's get right into it. The public split their bets again this past weekend. They nailed the Lions covering the spread, but lost the over in the AFC Championship game. Speak for yourself. Let's look at where they are leaning on the big game so far and discuss some possible fades. The spread opened at -2 in favor of the 49ers, quickly moved down to -1, but has since gone back. To no surprise, the public is backing the defending champs, two-time Super Bowl MVP Patrick Mahomes with 73% of the early bets and almost 75% of the money on the Chiefs to cover the spread. The Chiefs are a perfect 3-0 against the spread this postseason. That's incredible. Aaron, are you fading or siding with the public?
All right, this is a really hard spread to bet, but I am fading the public right now slightly. Now, at first, I was on the Chiefs for this game based on the idea that the 49ers defense has faded in recent weeks. However, it turns out that that fade is really just an artifact of a harder schedule in the second half, plus a mediocre performance by backups in Week 18. These teams are roughly equivalent on defense, so you're left with the question, are you going with the Patrick Mahomes magic or with the 49ers offense with all those playmakers that was significantly better than Kansas City's offense during the regular season and hasn't slowed down in the playoffs? It's so hard to pick against Mahomes, but I'm going to stick with the numbers that have the 49ers slightly better.
Oh, wow. Okay, Nick, which team will cover the spread, do you think?
Yeah, I'm fading the public and also taking the 49ers here. You know, when you have two numbers guys on your show, a lot of times they're going to agree, and Aaron and I agree here. You know, by my model, this is actually a perfectly efficient line. At -2, it's perfectly balanced, as you might expect from the volume of bets that are made on the Super Bowl. So really, my recommendation at San Francisco -2 is really hinged on the fact that there just aren't a lot of games that have a 2-point difference. A field goal difference is much more likely at 19% likelihood. So if you think that San Francisco is 2 points better, you could probably also reasonably conclude that they're 3 points better. So you're really getting a point of value on a relative basis versus what is an efficient line at -2 versus what would be the expected line at -3.
All right. Great analysis from both of you on that one. I like that you agree. Let's take a look at the total and see where the public is leaning. It opened at 47 and it's only moved up half a point. Both teams have combined for just 2 overs in their 5 playoff games this postseason, but the public is backing the high-powered offenses, almost 70% of the early bets and the money, both on the over. 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls have gone under, by the way. I think that's important to note. Nick, are you fading or siding with the public?
Yeah, I'm on the fade here. So I'm on sort of the hater double fade. So, you know, being on the under during the Super Bowl, you know, no one's favorite bet. But look, 47.5 is a high number, given that we've got the 4th best and 11th best defenses by expected points, respectively. From a comparables perspective, games that involve number 4 and number 11 have typically received a totals line of 44 and have scored on average 43.3 points. And so you can probably adjust that up by a point given the indoor location, but that still gives a lot of room for the under. And plus, it also presents a good opportunity for some hedging, specifically against team turnovers props, which are the number 1 predictor for overs.
Okay. And what about you, Aaron? Are you fading or siding the public?
No, we disagree on this one. I'm actually going to side with the public. I know that the Chiefs' defense played outstanding against the Ravens, but the 49ers did have one of the top 10 offenses of the last 40 years, according to my DVOA ratings. And Kansas City's own offense is a little underrated in the regular season. They finished the year 8th. And of course, now they have that playoff Mahomes magic, plus an extra week of rest for the 34-year-old Travis Kelce. And the game is indoors at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Put it all together, and I do like the game to go over. Even though it's a high number and the 49ers were a slow-paced offense, I like this game to go over.
Okay, speaking of Travis Kelce, it's time to look at some trends for some of the players in the Super Bowl. And Kelce's regular season was down from his usual standards, but his postseason has been spectacular. His Super Bowl receiving yards prop is at 69.5 yards. He has gone over this number in 12 straight playoff games, my word. The last time he failed to hit 70 or more receiving yards in the postseason was Super Bowl 54 when the Chiefs beat the Niners. Aaron, do you see the trend continuing with Kelce going over his prop?
Yeah, I like Kelce to go over. I buy the idea that the extra rest in the playoffs has been good for Kelce at age 34, and he does have the extra week before the Super Bowl. I also think the Chiefs' offense is trying to limit things as much as possible to just Kelce, Rashee Rice, and Isaiah Pacheco. And the 49ers are fourth in DVOA against tight ends, but they do allow a lot of targets to tight ends, so they have allowed a league average in yardage to the position. Therefore, I do not think they're going to keep Kelce from having his usual big day in Super Bowl 58.
What do you think, Nick? How big of a day is Kelce going to have?
I think he's going to have a big day, but I have it modeled out at about 66 and a half. And so realistically, this is probably a no bet for me. But if I'm forced to choose, I'd probably lean a little bit towards the under. I mean, I agree with Aaron. The Kansas City offense is really just Kelce, Pacheco, and Rice at this point, and they need that because otherwise they've got no real options beyond those three. But the feast that in the trend that Travis has been on has been against defenses that have either struggled to contain tight ends or have had serious injuries at linebacker, neither of which really holds true for the 49ers. A tight end against the 49ers has gone over this line just 2 times over the past 12 games. In those 2 instances required 11 and 13 targets respectively. Now, I don't doubt that Travis could generate similar volume, but going over that line just twice in 3 months is really hard for me and just isn't really all that compelling for me to back.
Okay, let's stick with the Chiefs offense and look at a trend. In both of Patrick Mahomes' Super Bowl wins, he has thrown at least 2 pass touchdowns. He has been on an incredible run over the last 2 postseasons with 11 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions. One possible way to back Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs is a same game parlay with the Chiefs money line and Mahomes 2+ passing touchdowns at plus 165. Nick, do you see Mahomes going over 1.5 pass touchdowns? And do you like that same game parlay maybe as an alternative to Mahomes just winning Super Bowl MVP?
Yeah, I do like this parlay in theory, but the math doesn't really support it. Mahomes models out to about 1.7 projected pass touchdowns, and he covers the 1.5 about 61% of the time. Now, the Chiefs win the game about 43% of the time, so those two things working in concurrence works out to about an implied 26% likelihood, which equates to a line of about plus 290, which is pretty far off from plus 175. If both those things do happen, though, what I actually would recommend is throwing the Mahomes MVP in there as well, making a 3-leg parlay, and maybe buying some Kelce or Rashee Rice overs to hedge it. Then you'll get close to that 290 with a pretty sensible narrative and give you some hedge middles as well.
Aaron, how do you see the 2-time Super Bowl MVP performing?
Well, I know it's a surprise, but Mahomes has only put up 2 passing touchdowns in 2 of his last 11 games. I know it sounds insane. It was only 1 last week against Baltimore and only 1 in the wild card round against Miami. So I don't like going with the Mahomes over 1.5 pass touchdowns on its own. I do agree that if you want to go with the Mahomes storyline, that the same game parlay is a better bet than just going with Mahomes as MVP at plus 125. But I also agree with Nick that an even better bet would be a 3-headed parlay that included the MVP with the pass touchdowns and the Chiefs money line. He's not going to win MVP unless the Chiefs win this game and he scores multiple touchdowns.
Okay, I agree. I like that one. It's time to find some leverage in the market now. That's right. Alt line leverage is here. We're going to share our favorite alternate lines for any bet this weekend. Aaron, where are you finding leverage with an alternate this week?
Well, this isn't much different from the regular line, but I'm going to go with George Kittle over 50 receiving yards at minus 110. Now, Kittle did not make it to 50 receiving yards last week, but he has hit that mark in 9 of the last 12 games. I think he's going to be an important part of the game plan. And the Chiefs have seen more than the NFL average of targets to tight ends this year. Their safeties and linebackers are not necessarily the best in coverage. Their cornerbacks are better. So again, I do like George Kittle over 50 receiving yards.
Okay, Nick, which alternate line are you eyeing?
I like under 45 at plus 120 here. As I mentioned earlier, games involving two teams with the defensive profiles that these two teams have has averaged out to 43.3 points. Given that we're indoors and given that 43.5 is a somewhat unusual total, I'll move up and actually get in at 45, a number that gives me a push versus relatively common 24-21, 28-17 score lines. It gives me a lot of room to go under in what I expect to be a pretty tight and well-played game.
Okay, let's check out some more spots for value with the mispriced market exchange. We're going to tell you which lines we believe are mispriced, resulting in good value. Nick, where do you see a misprice in this market?
Yeah, I like there's a bet on Kansas City to yes or no on whether or not they convert a fourth down in the game. I really like the no here. So with Patrick
Oh,
Mahomes, Kansas City has converted a fourth down about 64% of the time, which on its own would give an implied odds in the no of about plus 180. Now, the Chiefs have gone for it on fourth down 20 times this year, but those 20 instances occurred in just 9 games, with 11 games where KC never had that opportunity. So what we're really looking at with this bet is a combinatoric of the Chiefs going for it and the Chiefs making it, with the former being a necessary condition for the latter. So unless I'm missing something, getting plus 135 for something that the Chiefs don't even tempt in more than half their games, much less convert it, seems very mispriced.
okay, that's a good one. Aaron, which bet is mispriced in your eyes?
I think that Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle for Super Bowl MVP are mispriced, and I love those bets as long shots. At least Debo Samuel and Ayuk have moved closer together. At first, Samuel was at plus 1,800 and Ayuk plus 6,000, which didn't really make sense to me. Now I believe Samuel is plus 3,500 and Ayuk is plus 5,000. That's better, but I still love those odds on Ayuk or the plus 8,000 on George Kittle. I just told you why I think Kittle can have a big game. And Ayuk is the 49ers' top receiver, but I don't know if he's going to be covered by Kansas City's top cornerback, L'Jarius Sneed. If Sneed is on Debo Samuel instead, Ayuk could have a really big day.
Okay, well, you guys have given out a lot of good advice, but I land in Vegas on Sunday. I'm going right to the sports book. So help me out here. Give me your blue chip bet. It can be anything in the game, any prop, spread, money line, total, anything you want. Help me out. Nick, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, this is a wild one, but give me Kyle Juszczyk over 3.5 receiving yards. Given the strength of the
Okay.
KC defense, the 49ers are likely to pound the rock and give CMC all they can handle. And when the 49ers have gone up against a defense in the bottom third of the league, just like Kansas City's rush defense is, Juszczyk's average snap percentages have risen from 42 to 63%. And in every single one of those games, he's recorded a reception. Given that he's pulled down 14 receptions on just 17 targets for an elite 82% catch rate, and given that he's averaged 8.5 yards on those receptions, I love this prop. So give me all the Kyle Juszczyk I can handle.
All right, that's great. Aaron, what do you think? What's a good blue chip bet for this game?
I guess with only one game left to bet on, you tend to repeat yourself. So I'm going to ride with George Kittle again. My best bet for the Super Bowl is George Kittle over 47 and a half receiving yards. Kittle has hit that mark in 9 of the last 12 games, and my coverage DVOA stats are not very strong for the Kansas City linebackers or safety Justin Reed. I think Kittle will play a big part if there is a 49ers victory. So you might even want to parlay Kittle and a 49ers win. For example, you can get Kittle over 44 and a half yards. That's slightly lower than the regular prop, combined with the 49ers minus 2 for plus 230 right now. That is my best bet.
Okay, I hope people are taking notes. I know I am. We'll have one more show next week before the Super Bowl to give you everything you need to know before you put your money where your mouth is. Thanks so much for everyone for joining. We'll see you every Friday at 11 a.m. right here on the BetMGM YouTube channel.